The story begins with a quiet farmhouse, where the darkness of the night was shrouded. Then suddenly, a mysterious shining light passes over the farm, descending from the sky. In view, it was not like any ordinary light, but a magical creature, which disappears in a moment. The next morning, the owner of the farm is surprised to see the condition of his farm. His entire crop was ruined, as if someone had destroyed everything at night. It makes him very angry. He was convinced that all this was due to the same mysterious light that he had seen last night. Angry, he calls his 3 sons and says, "From now on, you shall guard this farm, and whoever is behind this loss shall be seized." This is where we meet the youngest son, John. No one took John seriously in the house. Everyone considered him worthless and weak. His 2 elder brothers always took advantage of him and put the difficult work on his head. Even this time, the 2 older brothers smartly sent John to guard the farm alone at night. John listened to them without any debate, and was ready to guard alone, with all the courage. The night began to deepen. There was silence all around. John was sitting in the middle of the field, and keeping an eye on each side. Then suddenly he heard the sound of someone walking from the nearby bushes. His heart starts beating fast. He slowly turns back, and as he looks back, there was a giant, mysterious creature standing in front of him. As John looks back, there was a huge, white horse standing in front of him. His body shone like ice, and his presence did not look like an ordinary horse. John could not believe, in his eyes, that he had never seen such a big and mysterious white horse before. By gathering courage, John tries to catch him. He throws the rope in his hand towards the horse, but as soon as the rope falls on the horse, he starts running at lightning speed. John also holds the rope tightly, due to which he trudges behind the horse and goes far. After a while, the horse's balance of running at high speed deteriorates and falls straight into a deep swamp, and the more he tries to get out, the more he goes into it. Seeing this, John had 2 ways. Either he would leave him to die there, or he would help him by risking his life. After all, John chooses humanity. He takes the horse out of the swamp with the help of a rope with full force. As soon as he comes out, John looks at the horse's eyes. There were tears in his eyes. It seemed as if he would never forget John's favor. Seeing this, John's heart melts. John smiles and says, "If you promise me that you will not harm our farm further, I will leave you free." The horse shakes his neck as if he had accepted his promise. Then he looks at John with gratitude, as if he was saying thank you to him. The next moment he hurries towards the forest and disappears somewhere in the dark. John also returns to his home, remembering the whole night incident, but he did not have any idea that he's aged. After a while, John begins to hear strange sounds from his farmhouse. He immediately arrives to find out who has the sound. But as soon as he goes inside, his eyes are open with surprise. There were 2 magnificent black horses tied to a tree, both horses looking very powerful and mysterious. John was just trying to understand that only then, a voice comes from behind him. "This is a gift for you." John looks back immediately. There was a small horse standing there, with innocence in his eyes and a smile on his face. The horse says, "My name is Fall." Then he goes on to say, "I am the son of the white sorcerer, whose life you saved from the mire that night. My mother is happy with your favor, so they have sent for you these 2 black horses." John was not happy to hear this, and he was not sure that one of his goodwill would receive such a great reward. At the same time, his father's voice comes from outside. John gets nervous, because if his father saw these magical horses, then a lot of questions would arise. He immediately runs out and tries to stop his father there, so that he does not come inside the farmhouse. And somehow, he sends them back as an excuse. When his father leaves, John breathes a sigh of relief and comes back in. Then he sits on the back of the foal. As soon as he sits, the foal runs at lightning speed. His speed was so high that the wind seemed to bounce back John's senses, and he had never seen a horse running so fast in his life. In a few moments, they are both in a mysterious place. John wondered how a horse could run at such a high speed. Then the foal started climbing a high rock and whistling loudly. As soon as the whistle of the fall, the 2 black horses tied in the farmhouse warehouse come to them, running at lightning speed. John is completely surprised to see this view. Now he has a thought in his mind. He thinks, if I sell these 2 fantastic horses in the market, I can get a lot of money. The next day, John takes the 2 horses to the market. As soon as people see those horses, everyone is surprised. They have never seen such a beautiful and powerful horse before. Seeing a huge crowd of people gather there, many rich traders and horse buyers come to John and start paying high prices. But only then does Fall gently say to John, to sell these 2 horses to an old man, that is the best thing to do. But there was something else going on in John's mind, and he thinks that if these horses were sold to the king, he would get even more money. Soon after, the king reaches the market with his ministers and soldiers. As soon as his eyes fall on the 2 black horses, he likes them. The king realizes that such horses will not be found anywhere in the entire state. But then the king's cunning minister says in his ear, Fall gets angry at John. He says angrily, I had already told you to sell these 2 horses to the old man, but you did not obey me, and now see what has happened. John begins to realize his mistake. He looks at the sad standing foil, and then whistles once. As soon as they hear the sound of the whistle, the 2 black horses come back to John, running at lightning speed. But because of their fast pace, the balance of the king's royal buggy worsens. The buggy turns, and the king falls badly on the ground. The king is very angry about this, but he hides his anger in order to save his respect in front of the people. He pretends to be calm and asks John for the price of those horses. This time, John tells the great value of horses. The king's ministers and advisors begin to discuss each other. Then one of them says, "Your Majesty, it is better to hire him in your palace than to pay him. And when he is with us, you will be able to avenge your humiliation at the right time." The king likes this advice. John is also offered to work in the palace, in the hope of a better future. John accepts the offer and stays in the palace to join hands with the king. But the king and his cunning minister were thinking of something else. One day the minister tells the king, "Your Majesty, why not try John? Order him to bring us a rare firebird. If he succeeds, we will find that precious bird. And if he fails, he will find an excuse for severe punishment." In fact, he was not an ordinary bird. He was a mysterious firebird, which was almost impossible to catch. His fire J part Liu. The king's minister smiled and said, "Your Majesty, it is almost impossible to capture the firebird. John will never succeed in it. And when he fails, punish him with death." The king loves this cunning plan of his minister. He immediately calls John to the court and orders, "If you bring us a bird of fire, you will receive a great reward. But if you fail, you will be punished with death." John thinks a few moments, but he was not one of those who were afraid to retreat. He accepted this challenge without hesitation. When Fall learns about this mission, he becomes very worried. He tells John, "This is not as easy as it looks. Whoever goes in search of a firebird to this day has never returned to life. So think again." But John's intention was steadfast. He says, "If I withdraw, the king will not leave me anyway. So I will do my best and meet this challenge." Seeing John's encouragement, Fall decides to help him. He sits on his back and flies towards a dense and mysterious forest at a fast pace. After reaching inside the forest, the foil points to a strange green fruit. He says, "These are not simple fruits. They are called green nuts. These are the favorite things of the firebird. If we have to call it to ourselves, that will be our greatest use." Paul explains to John, "The most special thing about these green nuts is that after eating them, the firebird falls into a deep sleep. Only then will we have the chance to catch it." Hearing this plan, John sees a ray of hope. Without wasting any time, both of them set out toward the mysterious place where the firebird lived. On the way, Paul tells John another secret. The firebird does not live in the sky, but in a magical place beneath the ground. So we will have to bring it out. Both of them slowly reach that place. Paul scatters some green nuts on the ground, and then both of them hide behind a large rock and begin to wait. After a short while, the smell of the green nuts reaches the firebird. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking, and the very next moment, the earth splits open. From it, a gigantic firebird, surrounded by flames, comes out. Without any suspicion, it happily eats all the green nuts. Just a few seconds later, its eyes begin to feel heavy, and it falls unconscious onto the ground. Seeing this opportunity, John slowly walks toward it to catch it. But just as he reaches near it, the firebird suddenly wakes up again. It lets out a loud, angry scream and starts chasing John and Paul. Both of them run to save their lives. But wherever the firebird flies, its fire sets the entire forest ablaze. Within moments, the whole island is surrounded by flames. Finally, the firebird comes very close to both of them. It seemed that now there was no way for them to survive. Just then, John remembers that he still has one last green nut left. Without wasting a single moment, he throws that last green nut toward the firebird. The firebird immediately swallows it. A few. The next morning, when the firebird regains consciousness, it finds itself bound in heavy iron chains. John slowly walks toward it, but the moment he looks into the firebird's eyes, he is shocked. Tears are flowing from its eyes. For the first time, John realizes that this is not a cruel monster, but a helpless creature that longs for freedom. Seeing this, John's heart melts. Without any delay, he removes all the chains from the firebird. As soon as it is free, it spreads its huge fire-like shining wings and flies toward the sky. But before leaving, it returns to John one last time. It drops a golden, shining feather from its body and leaves it in front of John. That feather was not an ordinary feather. A bright golden light was glowing from it. The firebird looks at John with gratitude and then disappears into the sky forever. Paul says to John, "Now the king will never forgive you. You did not bring the firebird for him, so he will surely sentence you to death." But John does not lose hope. He replies, "Maybe after seeing this magical feather, the king will believe that I really reached the Firebird." Both of them return to the palace. Zhang tells the king the whole truth and also shows him the shining feather. But the king does not believe a single word. Hearing Princess, Zhang smiled and said, "If your king was really brave enough, he would come here to pick me up, not send anyone else." By saying so, he suddenly jumped down from the high mountain. Seeing this, Zhang did not stop for a moment. Regardless of his life, he also jumped behind the princess. The foal was already waiting for them. Both Zhang and princess landed safely on the back of the foal. The foal brought them down comfortably, with the help of their magical speed and strength. Seeing all this, Fall understood that Zhang is now beginning to care about the princess not just because of a mission, but by heart. He explains to Zhang, "If the king knew that you were in love with the princess, your odds would be greater than ever," he said. But they did not know that the princess had secretly listened to their whole conversation. Seeing Zhang's truth and bravery, feelings for Zhang were also born in his heart. A few days later, the three of them reach back to the palace. As soon as the princess enters the palace, the whole court is shocked to see her beauty. Everyone was eager to get a glimpse of her. The king is filled with anger within the sight of Zhang alive. He thought that this time Zhang will never return. But his ministers and soldiers explained to him, "Your Majesty, do not be angry. This time it is yours. Zhang has completed his work and brought the princess to you." The king hides his anger and praises Zhang for his appearance. Not only that, he declares Zhang to be honored by giving another big post. But there was a smile on the face of the king, and deep hatred for Zhang in the heart. He just got another chance. Zhang's bravery began to be discussed throughout the state. People were congratulating him and celebrating in his honor. But Zhang was not happy with all these things at all. There was only one concern in her mind, the princesses. At night, he secretly goes to his room to meet the princess. He wanted to tell her his heart and also warn her of the king's tricks. But before Zhang can say something, the king's soldiers reach there and take the princess with him to the court. In the court, the king proposes marriage in front of the princess in full royal style. The princess thinks a few moments and then says, "I will marry you on the same condition. First, bring back my grandmother's lost ring. That ring fell into the sea several years ago. I will not marry until the ring is returned to me." The king is surprised to hear this condition of the princess. It was almost impossible to find a small ring from the depths of the sea. Only then does Zhang reach the court. As soon as the king sees him, there is a new trick in his mind again. He orders immediately, "Zhang, this is what you will do. If the ring is found, it is fine. And if it is not found, you will have to pay for it with your life." Zhang also accepts this mission in compulsion. After leaving the palace, he asks Fall about that ring. After thinking for a while, Zhang has a great plan in mind. He thinks, if the whale were to sneeze hard, all the ships in its belly might come out, according to their plan. Both Zhang and Fall enter the whale's nose and begin to tickle it. In a few moments, the whale's nose starts to get sharp, itching. Then suddenly, the whale sneezes so hard that all the old ships trapped in his stomach come out one by one. All those ships imprisoned for years are finally free. Now the whale was also free from the burden of her mistake. She goes happily swimming towards the deep sea. After the whale's departure, Zhang suddenly remembers that he came to take the princess's ring. But now it was too late. The whale had gone away. Zhang is disappointed to think that. At the same time, a small crab comes to him. He tells Zhang, "The whale has sent it to you. He felt your sincere help and mercy. He gave me this ring on his way, so that I could bring it to you." Hearing this, the smile returns to Zhang's face. He takes the ring and immediately goes to the palace with the foil. Upon reaching the palace, he hands the princess the lost ring of her grandmother. Seeing the ring, the princess's eyes are filled with joy. He is convinced that Zhang has once again made the impossible work possible. But at the same time, Zhang's eyes go to the palace courtyard. There, the Firebird was tied to a high building with heavy iron chains. Seeing him, Zhang's heart is filled with sadness. He realizes that the king has kept that innocent, magical bird captive for his own sake. Now, the princess was convinced that Zhang could do anything for her. Even in her mind, love and respect for Zhang had increased more than ever. On the other hand, the sight of a soldier in the palace suddenly falls on the Fall. When he sees Fall speaking like humans, he starts screaming in fear. This is not an ordinary horse. This is a magical creature with satanic power. After listening to him, all the soldiers of the palace rush behind him to catch the Fall. At the same time, the king also sleeps. He looks out of the window and finds the foil standing near the princess's window. Without any thought, the king raises his gun and shoots directly on the foil. Fall falls on the ground as soon as it is shot. Zhang runs towards him with full force, but by then, it is too late. He cannot save his most loyal companion. The king immediately takes advantage of this incident. He proclaims throughout the kingdom, Zhang has conspired to kidnap the princess. So she is expelled from her palace job, and she is sentenced to death. Upon hearing this, the princess realizes that Zhang is now trapped in great trouble. She goes to the injured foil and says, "Because of me, Zhang's distress has increased. But there is still a way left." Then she tells Fall her secret plan. The king still did not believe in this whole plan. He felt that there was no trick in it. That his cunning minister said, "Your Majesty, first use these 3 characters on Zhang, and if he survives, then you will go into it yourself." The king liked this advice. On the other hand, the princess secretly approaches the Fall and explains the way to save Zhang. She says, "If my grandmother's magical ring was put in the first character, a feather of a firebird in the second character, and life and death flower in the third character, then Zhang would have nothing," he said. Fall asks, surprise, "But where will you get this life and death flower?" The princess responds, "At the end of this world, they grow rare flowers." Hearing this, Fall gets worried. He says, "It's going to take a long time to go so far and come back." The princess smiles and says, "But your pace is not the same as any ordinary horse. If anyone can do it on time, then it is just you." Regardless of his injuries, Fall immediately goes out in search of that magical flower. The next morning, 3 huge characters are prepared in front of the palace. The first vessel had boiling water, ice like cold water in the second, and boiling milk in the third. The entire state had gathered to see this scene. The king stands before the people and says in a loud voice, "I am giving Zhang a chance to come. If he succeeds in this trial, I will set him free." Actually, all this was just a show, so that people would think of the king as kind and just. Then the king's soldiers lead Zhang to the first character, as soon as he is pushed into boiling water. At the same moment, Princess, secretly, her grandmother's magical ring, that Puffino part. As soon as the princess puts her grandmother's magical ring in the first character, a miracle happens. Zhang comes out safely from the boiling water without any harm, and falls directly into another character. Seeing this, the firebird in captivity starts screaming loudly. As soon as he hears his voice, one of his magical wings comes flying and falls directly into another character. The next moment, Zhang gets out safely from cold water, like ice, and reaches the third, that is, the last character. On the other hand, the princess's eyes were constantly outside the palace. She was eagerly waiting for Fall to return. On the other hand, despite being injured, Fall reaches the end of the world with its full force. There he gets life and death flower. But then he realizes that whoever breaks this flower, his death will be certain. Still, without thinking of a moment, he breaks the flower, because for him, Zhang's life was more precious. Is writing. If you enjoy this movie expansion, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing movie breakdowns. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out. Turn on the notification bell to stay updated with every new movie revealed. Thanks for watching.